professional, and we've been struggling with that. But right now it'll be very professional. So I want to say hello to all of you. My name is Marion Wingfield. I think I know you all. No, a few people I don't. And we are really privileged to have Nora Yousif with us today. She is, I need to give you her biography. She's a third-generation financial advisor, working with Kevin Williams, her father, and her grandfather, Avery Lee, who is a big supporter of the library and one of my favorite people. She was honored as a top 40 under 40 professional by Boston Business Journal in 2017 for going above and beyond to serve her clients. And I know that for a fact because I've used some of her services, as well as by her industry in 2016. She's presented on personal finance, investments, and Social Security for more than 300 Boston area organizations, including the IRS. Nora frequently contributes to TV and radio shows like NBC, Boston News, Television, Magic 106. She's been published in Yahoo Finance, Forbes, and frequently contributes to CNBC. She runs the popular local series, it's very popular, Women, Wine, and Wall Street, and has a local office in Easton. So Nora, take it away. I mean, you have a ton of fans. We're really happy to have you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. That was a more than kind intro, and I feel exhausted after hearing all of that. I'm tired.
As well, you should.
No, but it's nice to be with you all. I just want to say, don't let the blazer fool you. I have yoga pants on and really comfortable shoes, so I hope so all very comfortable. I'm in my Easton office. It's locked, of course, no one else can come in, but it's very casual these days. So I think it's great that we have this format actually, because typically, we're in a larger group setting, and people don't feel quite as comfortable to ask questions in those larger settings. So I think this is actually an advantage, and plus you didn't have to bother with your commute or parking, so that's always great. So we're going to go right in, and we're going to mainly talk about Social Security and Medicare. And really, there's so much information out there. And my goal is to really synthesize things to what you need to know, to what you ought to be listening to for yourself, your friends, for your parents, your relatives, and anybody else, to get as much money as you can from the system and do the best thing for yourself. And then we'll talk about how this integrates into your larger financial picture. And if folks have any financial or investment questions, of course, I'm happy to answer those. We'll have a Q&A. And what I do at all of these is I always offer a complimentary session afterwards for a half hour where we talk about you. So it could be anything that we discuss here, Social Security or investments, whatever it is. So at the end, or if you have to leave early, so shoot me an email, with some times that work for you, and I'll do my best to accommodate, and we'll do a video call together. Okay. All right. So let's get to it. I applaud you for coming to what I hope is one of the first talks on Social Security that doesn't put you all to bed. I'm going to try to keep this interesting as well. And for some people we're saying, well, maybe I'm too young to be thinking about this, or I don't know if I'm getting way too ahead of it. Again, this could apply to your parents or older relatives and friends. So I like to think of Social Security as a bit of a perfect storm, because we have these record number of baby boomers who are collecting, and there's less resources available than ever before, right, from Social Security because of all the budgetary constraints. And there are over 81 different ways to collect. There are 20,000 pages of Social Security rules that if anyone has some free time, feel free to go ahead and do some leisure reading. And as of 2015, there's actually 3 different iterations of those 81 different ways to collect that change the whole ball game. So there's a lot, is what I'm saying. So I'm going to, again, try to streamline this, and so you better understand how this works and how it relates to you specifically, okay? All right, so first things first, I'm going to start with a little pop quiz. I'm going to do a little sound here. Can you hear the background? Yeah. Little sound effect. So the Jeopardy question of the morning or afternoon is, let's say a real couple, Bob and Carol, they happen to be my aunt and uncle. So Bob and Carol, let's just say they are 66 this year, And Bob, let's say he earned $130,000 for most of his career. How much do you think they're expected to collect from Social Security over their lifetime, or let's say the next 20 years, cumulatively? Is it A, and I want you to write your answers, A through D, in the little chat box. If you can't figure out the chat box, don't stress about it. Just keep the answer in your head. Is it A, $500,000 they're going to collect from Social Security over 20 years? B, $750,000? C, $1 million? Or D, over $1,250,000? So which of those answers do you think it is?
And this is over 20 years, right?
Over 20 years, yes. So a cumulative benefit, yes. And we're just saying Bob earned 130. Carol will say earned, let's say 60,000. Okay. Okay. I see Diane says D. Anybody else? Answers? Okay. All right. Well, Diane, very nice job. Trebek would be happy. You are correct. Yeah, D is the right answer. Some people had some different answers there. So very good. The answer is D, over $1,250,000, and with really, modest incomes. So it's typically, people are shocked to realize how much money that is. We're not just talking pennies, and the typical impression of Social Security is nothing. It's, just pennies. I can't count on it. It couldn't be further from the truth. It's a critical building block of people's retirements. And that's why myself as a financial advisor, that's why I've really gotten to know this really well, because it's such a crucial component of your overall financial picture, right? And let's not forget, it's something that is a government-sponsored, inflation-adjusted lifetime retirement income. It's a mouthful, meaning it continues for your entire life. Now, I know a lot of doubts creep into people's minds when they hear Social Security. Anyone want to just shout out to what the most popular question I might get when I mention Social Security is?
They're going to run out of money.
Is it going to run out of money? Will it even be there? Can we even count on it? So I want to just demystify that first, because otherwise you may not listen to anything else I say. So my answer is, none of us have a crystal ball, but we do have history at the very least to guide us. And as Mark Twain famously said, history may not repeat itself, but it sure does rhyme. So the last time we were about to run out of money, which, by the way, the latest projection is where the Social Security Trust Fund is going to run out of money in 2034. So we've got 14 years, well, just about 13 years. And at that point in time, there will only be about 78% of money funds available that's available right now to pay for benefits. So people are starting to get, starting to wonder if this is something they should be seriously concerned about. So this happened before. The last time the Social Security Trust Fund was running out of money, and it was in the headlines, was in 1985, when who was president? 1985. Reagan, yes, that's right. I didn't hear it, but I can see the read lips. Yes, Reagan, that's correct. He was president. And that point in time, there were actually not 13 or 14 years for Social Security Trust Fund to run out of money. There were only 2 years left. And it took the situation to get that dire for the government to act, which may be similar now. And what they did is they prolonged the date that you're supposed to be getting your Social Security from 65. That used to be the old date where you get 100% of what's promised to you. And they said, you're all living longer. We're going to switch it back to 66 or 67, between those two ages, depending on the month you're born. Great. So they extended it. Okay. So, and for those who were about to collect, who were counting on it, that were about 5 years out, they were grandfathered in. They didn't experience that change. So for a lot of you on the call, I would not be concerned. In large part, will it most likely be there in some capacity? Yes, because too many Americans wasn't designed to be this way, but too many Americans depend on that for their livelihood. They live off of those Social Security paychecks that they have not saved as they were supposed to. And secondly, if you look at in the past, likely it'll be a change that will be gradually, that won't affect those who are just planning and about to count on it or about to retire. And it will likely look a little bit different for myself. For the younger generations, yeah, we probably, won't be getting our Social Security full benefit at 67. We'll probably be getting it at a later date, or we could also be taxed. More of the wealthy could be taxed. At this point, if you earn anything over really $133,000, does not get taxed and paid into for Social Security. So that's another change that could be made. So bottom line, it most likely will be there in some capacity. Will it look different? Sure. For your own purposes, if you're approaching Social Security retirement age and deciding age, I would not be concerned, okay? All right, so we'll see what happens, of course, who knows? All right, so moving on, the next most popular question, which I think was mentioned while we were giving it 5 minutes to socialize here. One of the first questions somebody asked was, well, when do I collect? When should I collect? That's the million-dollar question, right? When should I collect my Social Security? So I could tell you the most optimal year and up to the date and month of when you should start to collect to get the most optimal benefit, meaning you'll collect the most cumulatively for your lifetime, if I knew how long you were going to live. Yeah, of course, we can't work backwards. However, we can use a couple clues. That is our general health, and that is also the health of our parents, right? Our genetics, for better or worse. And if you tell me, well, gosh, you know what, everyone in my family, no one made it past 72. My recommendation to you, most likely, and you're not in great health, may be, you know what, to get the most out of the system, have that ice cream for lunch, have that lobster roll at dinner, and take your Social Security as early as possible, which is 62. That's the earliest date you can collect unless you're a widow. You can collect sooner if you're a widow. However, if you are in the camp of the average American that is living, right now it's projected, the average 65-year-old today is projected to live to be 85, okay? 1 in 20 will be 100. Wow. So, and I know a few people on the phone call, I know you have longevity in your family because I know your parents. So if you have that longevity, and I see a lot of women on the line, for the fellas, the average expected age of survival for men is 84, women 86. Fellas, we're not going to tell you a secret. But if you're a woman paying attention, Social Security is that much more important to you because you have more years most likely to be accounted for, and you need money to last you longer. Okay. And just to point out, every other industry in the financial span has adjusted for people living longer. The insurance industry has adjusted for people living longer. Annuity industry has adjusted for people living longer. Financial planners like myself, I adjust for people living longer. I say 95 unless I know there's something tangible that you won't have longevity, because science is only getting better and better. The area, however, that has not adjusted is Social Security. And so, are not adjusted enough. And so for that reason, because of that, it potentially leaves a lot of opportunity for you here to really benefit and to take advantage of that discrepancy, okay? So I mentioned the soonest you can collect is 62. At that point in time, if you were to collect at 62, of course, you get a haircut, okay? And you will permanently get a reduced amount of money. Now, the government, when they set this up in the 1930s, knew something about psychology. And they knew that if they dangled a carrot in front of you at 62, a check in front of you, that most people would take that carrot. And they've been right. 3/4 of people take the money early at 62, and they leave the rest of the money that could be theirs in the government's hands, okay? So you don't want to fall in that trap if it's not the best thing for you. Okay, after all, you've been the one paying into the system all this time through your FICA tax dollars. So you want to get what's yours. So So 62 is as soon as you can collect. The date where you receive 100% of what the government's promised you and your projections is between the age of 66 or 67. Now, if you were born before 1943, probably your parents, their full retirement age was 65. That's changed. For everybody on the line, I can see your faces, that's changed. It doesn't apply to you. So if you're curious, well, what is my full retirement age? If you're born in 1960 or later, your full retirement age is 67. If you were born between 1943 and 54, your full retirement age is 66. If you were born in 1955, your full retirement age is 66 and 2 months. Again, these are the ages at which you'll receive 100% of what the government promises you. If you're born in 1956, your full retirement age is 66 and 4 months. 1957 is 66 and 6 months. You get the idea. It increases by 2-month increments each year. Let's jump to 1959. Your full retirement age is 66 and 10 months. Understood? Okay. Now, you can, if you collect your benefit at 62, you're going to get a haircut. Let's say your full retirement age is 66. Your haircut would be 25%. Yikes. So you're only going to get 75% of what the government offers you if you collect at 62. Now, if your full retirement age is 67, that haircut is actually 30%. It's a bigger haircut. Okay, so the decision is yours of when to collect. We'll get into different nuances of how this could change. Okay, or you wait till your full retirement age between 66 and 67. Now, there's a little bit more here. You can actually continue to wait. Okay, good things come to those who wait. If you continue to wait, you can hold off all the way up to what age?
70.
70, beautiful, Stacy. If you wait a day after your birthday month of 70, you simply left money on the table. Shame on you. You did something wrong. Okay. And if that is you, reach out to me and we'll get that extra. There's a way you can get that extra month, but it takes a little work. Okay. So at 70, ooh, the government sweetens the deal for you. Okay. It's longer to wait, but good things come to those who wait. Patience is a virtue. Each year you wait to collect your benefits, you get an increase. Anybody want to guess how much of an increase you get each year you hold off to collect between your full retirement age, let's say it's 66 to 70?
8%.
Ooh, who said 8%?
Kathy Gale.
Nice, Kathy. Very nice. 8% per year. Now, recognize there's actually an increase every month you wait. So you don't even need to wait a whole year. If you just wait 1 month, you get a 2/3% increase. Okay, it's an automatic pay raise for waiting. So let's think this through. 8%, you're 66, you do that for 4 years. By 70, your benefit isn't 100% anymore when you turn it on. It's going to be 132%. Okay, very nice. It's ballooned. So clearly, that's really appealing. But so few people do that, even though it's in their best interests, particularly if they have longevity. Now, I know percentages are one thing. I'm going to touch some dollar signs because I think that'll get your attention a little bit more. Let's say, again, 20-year retirement span for just one person, okay? Average person who's collecting Social Security. Let's say they collected at 62 instead of 66. About how much could that individual be leaving on the table of money with the government that could be in their pocket, but because they chose to collect early, get that 75% haircut over a 20-year span, about how much money do you think you'd be leaving on the table? Let's say that's you. If you collect at 62 versus 66, any guesses? Okay, $150,000 just gone. Okay. How about if you collected at 66, your full retirement age? Okay, you got the 100%. All right, better than collecting early in most cases, depending on your health and situations. And you collected at 66 instead of 70, how much could you be leaving on the table? Any guesses?
75,000.
Ooh, thank you, Marion, for the guess. It's actually more than that. It's $200,000. So let's put that together. I know. I'm glad I'm hearing some sighs and looks of shock. It's a lot of money. So you put that together. If you collect at 62 versus 70, that's about $350,000 you're just letting somebody else keep and not put in your pocket or keep for your family. And that's just one person. That's not both spouses. Okay, so we're talking real money. It's a major change. It's a major difference. Now, I can already tell whether, for those of you who I can't see your faces, I'm just imagining that you're looking at me a little skeptic and saying, well, if you collect at 62 though, you're collecting for a longer time. Even though it's less, but you're collecting longer. So, hey, doesn't it still make sense? And what if things change? I'd rather just get my money. Well, here's the thing. There's the break-even age. And I'm going to tell you what the break-even age is. Okay, and what I'm referring to is the break-even of you collecting less for longer or more for a shorter period, assuming you live for 20 years. Okay, so the break-even age, if you were to collect at 66 versus 62, to make that worth it, to collect for 4 years less but a larger amount, you have to live to at least 78 if your full retirement age is 66. Okay, it seems kind of doable, especially when the average age of the American is 85. Okay, and your health is decent, doesn't have to be great, just, you know, average. Okay, break even if you were to collect between 62, or I'm sorry, 70 instead of 62, and this is the one a lot of people ask about, is 80. Right, so if your folks are in their 80s, I would take that bet. I would go for the long haul and collect that longer benefit, that larger benefit, even though you're pushing it off. Now, and a lot of people say, well, Nora, but you know, where am I going to get the money? Well, hopefully you have other savings, money really accessible that you can use, and you just keep your 8% building. And oftentimes people will say, but Nora, can I just give the money to you and invest it? Can I just give you that Social Security paycheck at 62? You invest it, and you know, that way at least I'm getting my money, but it's making money potentially. Well, to that, and I'm the investment person, I'm the investment woman telling you this, 8% guaranteed is very hard to get. And I haven't found that Rosetta Stone of where to find 8% guaranteed year after year, right? So my advice, if longevity is on your side, and of course every circumstance is different, and you know, these are broad strokes and everybody's different, so it requires further assessment for each individual, to include that disclaimer. But in general, what I recommend is waiting and building up that 8% if you have longevity on your side and you have other investments and savings to tap into. Okay. Now, I'm not saying you have to work until 70, just don't touch your Social Security. Okay. All right. Another question that gets asked is, how do they calculate what's owed to you for Social Security? Okay, it's not the 3 highest years, that's pensions, okay? Social Security looks at your 35 highest earning years. Now, for the women on the line, this is gonna be important to you. A lot of times, I just had a couple come in recently, and the wife said, hey, why is my Social Security amount so much less than his? We pretty much earn the same amount, income-wise. Well, if you took years working working in the home only to raise the family and not paying into FICA, you got a big zero, goose egg, of income for those years. And if you don't have another 35 working years of paying into FICA to supplement that, it's going to drastically bring down your average. Okay. So for your daughters, you know, I'm not saying it's a personal choice, of course, that people make. But even if it's some kind of part-time work, that's even for, you know, a limited short period, just whatever they can, people, particularly women, can do to avoid, and men now too, things are changing, to avoid those zero income years can drastically affect your finances down the line. Okay. And for the business owners, okay, a lot of times they'll not claim much income. That's between them and their accountant. I don't want to get in the middle of that. They won't claim much income because, of course, they don't want to pay taxes. However, that's going to be to their detriment later on when they realize their Social Security is so small. And a lot of people are shocked and wonder if there's anything they can do. Well, no, you can't go back and buy that income unless you can show you actually, you know, there was a true mistake done. Okay. All right. Now, I'm not going to go through the calculation of how they calculate what's owed to you, but just know your lower income amounts are actually have the heaviest weight. So again, back to what I was referencing to perhaps your daughters who, you know, have a lot going on, and maybe sons that are choosing to stay at home and raise the kids. Even if it's a small income that you're paying into FICA, really can make a big difference. It doesn't have to be, you know, $100,000 that's earned. It can be much more modest, like $15,000 earned for the entire year. If you're curious, I can get you that exact amount. All right, next, I'm going to spare you the calculation because I promise I'll keep you all awake for this and not bore you to tears. If you're curious how much you're going to be getting, and you haven't received one of these in a while, okay, you haven't received one of these statements in a while. Well, the reason for that is the budgetary constraints. The government stopped mailing these to save money. And you only get them every 5 years. If you're over 60, you should be getting them every year. But it's 2020. We're all doing things virtually. I say log online. You don't need to be waiting around for the statement. You also don't even need to create a profile. There's actually a quicker way to find out what your benefit is. And I'm going to share with you that website. And I'll type it into the chat. The website, write this down. And under a minute, you'll find out what your benefit is at 62, your full retirement age, and then 70. The website to go to is ssa.gov/estimator. I'm going to type this in the chat box, ssa.gov/estimator. Okay. And then on the top of the screen is a blue button that says estimate my retirement button. You click on that, and that brings you to a 10-question questionnaire that you fill out. Very basic information: your mother's maiden name, your social security number, your date of birth, state you're born in. Easy. Press enter, and then you type in what you showed in your W-2 or for your earnings last year. Press enter, and out pops your benefits. Easy, fast. It's a great way to go, and it uses your, of course, your earnings history. And don't be alarmed if you ever do create the online profile and you go back and review your earnings and it strikes you that your earnings are low. Remember, there's a cap, and every year it goes up slightly. This year it's about $133,000. So if you earn $200,000 and you see only $133,000, there's not a mistake. It's just that you're over the cap. All right, you all still with me? We're all still awake? Okay, ready for more? All right, I'm going to go through one more scenario, and then we're going to talk about different life marital status and how that affects your Social Security for yourself or your friends. Okay. So can you collect while working? That's a very popular question I get. And the answer is sure, you can collect, but will your benefit be reduced or eliminated? Well, yes. So potentially. So how it works is if you are working and you're at your full retirement age or older, you can earn $1 million and there's no reduction to your Social Security. You continue to collect it. Great. Just another reason to hold off until your full retirement age. Okay. However, if you're younger than that, in fact, Marion, tell us your birthday, your month and date.
October 1952.
Okay, October 19th. All right, it's coming up. So if you were to start collecting, let's say, Marion, we're going to make you 62 and you're collecting, but you're earning, say, $1 million. Okay. Your Social Security will get reduced by $1 for every $2 you earn over about $18,300. Right. And probably it's going to reduce it right down to zero. Now, those dollars don't disappear forever. They end up getting calculated back once you are at your full retirement age. But still, why bother collecting and have that permanent reduction? Because you're starting at 62 now, if you're not even going to be able to keep the money and pocket the money. So again, and just another reason, hold off to your full retirement age. Now, let's say you are in your full retirement year. So let's say you're at 66. Until your birthday month of October, for that small period. This is a weird rule in the system. I don't know why they have it, but they do. Your reduction is reduced by $1 for every $3 you earn over about $48,600. Okay, a little nuance, a little difference there, but same story there. I just say hold off and wait till your full retirement age and month. Okay, if you don't need the money, and especially if you're still working and have longevity. All right, now let's have a little fun here. Let's talk about marital status and how that affects your benefits. So general question here, does being married give you options? Are there any benefits to being married in the eyes of Social Security?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, there are. Okay. There are. There are benefits, absolutely. And how it works is if you're married, you can have the option to collect your own benefit, like we discussed, which now you understand how that works, or half of your spouse, an amount equal to half of your spouse's benefit at their full retirement age. You can pick and choose whichever is higher. Obviously, if yours is higher, you stick to yours, okay? Unless you're widowed, which we'll get into. There's a lot of opportunity for more money if you're widowed. If anyone on the call is widowed or you have friends that are widowed, we should absolutely talk offline and find extra money, okay? So that's how it works if you're married. Now, a little wrinkle here, when you're married, you both have to be 62 to be able to collect. And your spouse, for you to collect that spousal benefit, that half their amount of full retirement age, he or she has to already be collecting, okay? They have to already be collecting. All right, next, let's move on. Are there benefits to having an ex? Well, yes. There's the silver lining here. There are benefits. Yes, my friend who just went through a divorce, she would say, hell yes. So yes, in the eyes of Social Security, there are. How it works is you have really the same options you would as if you were married. You can collect your own benefit or half of your now ex-spouse's benefit at their full retirement age. Actually, it's a little bit better in that you don't have to wait for he or she to be collecting for you to do that. Remember, when you're married, they have to be collecting. If you're not married, doesn't matter if they're collecting or not, you just both have to be 62. Okay, now that was a new adjustment. What happens was the exes were to spite the other person, purposely waiting till 70 to lock the other person out of collecting, and it was getting messy, and the government didn't intend for a Jerry Springer episode. They just wanted to do what was fair, so they eradicated that rule for ex-spouses. Okay, now a little important note here. For you to be able to collect an ex-spousal benefit, you have to have been married for at least, anybody want to guess? You can put it in the chat.
10 years.
Oh, who knew that?
Kathy Gale.
Kathy again. Very good, Kathy. 10 years, divorced for 2. Now, I do a lot of work with divorced people who are either going through divorce. I'm a certified divorce financial analyst. Or working with them after divorce. During divorce, I help get them an optimal financial outcome, and I look at their divorce decree with a financial set of eyes, because the attorney aren't always as familiar with the nuances of all this financial stuff. How could they, right? I couldn't do their job in addition to my own. And I also do a lot of hand-holding after divorce and pick up the pieces and help figure out, okay, what's next? Are you going to be okay? Do you keep the house? So on and so forth. Investments, what do we do moving forward? What makes sense for you? We even do singles mix and mingle event for a lot of our divorced and single clients. So, and we open those up to the community for anyone interested. So my point is, oftentimes when I'm meeting with someone who is even contemplating divorce and just want to get a sense of if they would be okay if they were to push forward, or get a sense of what their finances would look like, I routinely sit with people, especially after quarantine. There was a lot of that, as you might imagine. One of the first questions I ask is, well, how long have you been married? And you now know why I'm asking that question. It's because if they tell me, yeah, I've been married about 9.5 years, I say, well, could you stick it out another 6 months? Really, because it makes such a difference. And this applies to the husband and the wife, okay? And it's, frankly, I'm just looking at their best financial behalf, okay? But a lot of these are really important little nuances that may not seem like a big deal, but they can have drastic changes down the line. All right. Next up, another situation that to consider is, what if you are like my Uncle Jimmy, who's a hopeless romantic, God bless him. God bless him. Many talents, but love is not one of his fortes. he had multiple wives, and by the third wedding, no more wedding gifts. We all said no more gifts. So if you are in a similar situation, or you know someone who has multiple exes, okay, well, how Social Security works is you actually have the option to collect that ex-spousal benefit off of whomever had the highest amount, okay? Whoever had the highest income over their working career. So you can actually pick whomever or whichever you want to use, okay? So long as you were married for at least those 10 years and divorced for 2, okay? Interesting, right? And now if you were the main breadwinner and you have all these spouses collecting off of your working history, don't worry, it's not a bad thing. And in fact, you won't even know that that's happening. It's part of why there's obviously problems in the system, but you won't even realize, and it won't affect you in any way, okay? All right. Now, what if you had kids later in life, okay? Or your husband had kids from a later in life, or from a second marriage. It's happening more and more. And so a neat little kicker there. Ooh, I'm keeping an eye on time. There's some neat benefits there if you have children. If you are collecting Social Security and your children are still young, and when I say young, that they're under 18 or they're still in high school, and you're collecting Social Security, there's money to be potentially had for the family there. I'll just leave it at that for the sake of time. Another big one is widows. As I was alluding to before, surviving spouses or widows. Everything we just talked about essentially gets thrown out the window for widows. Because again, Social Security was established in the 1930s, when if a spouse passed away in war, that was detrimental to the family, okay? So just know, I would say 8 out of 10 widows, I find extra money through Social Security. So if you are a widow, you know a widow, your mother is a widow, make sure you're speaking to someone like myself, just to make sure there's no money that can be had. Again, I mean, roughly 8 in 10 widows, I find extra money. And you can't expect the Social Security Administration to just magically send you a check and figure out the strategy for you. They're there to process paperwork, not to find the most optimal benefit for you, okay? And so, yes, the rules get completely thrown out the window for widows. I'll just give you some broad strokes. You can collect up to 100% of what your spouse, of what he or she was collecting, okay? And there's a lot you can do to switch back and forth between benefits, between collecting that widow's benefit and your personal benefit, and switching back and forth. And that, again, is where I find in most cases, extra money. In fact, I recently found an extra $56,000 for a couple switching off between benefits. And for a widow, recently found her an extra about $1,600 a month. So that's the kinds, just to give you an idea that we're talking real money that can be found through Social Security. Again, the biggest misconception is that it's all pennies. All right, so I'm gonna leave off really just kicking things up a notch here and giving you an example of ways to optimize your benefit if you're married. So I'm gonna go back to the example of Bob and Carol because they're my aunt and uncle and they're top of mind right now. So Bob and Carol, a real couple. Let's say Bob is a business owner, he's 66, and Carol is 62. Now Carol, she was a teacher for a long time. She got sick of, the only kids she wanted to be around were her own grandchildren. I couldn't blame her. And so she was adamant about, unlike Bob, who was gonna wait till 70, she was adamant about collecting at 62. There was no changing her mind. Okay, you know what I'm gonna say already after this, that she's getting a haircut. She's getting a reduction, only 75% of what she could be collecting, okay? But they're actually still leaving money on the table. Here's where things get interesting. Now, here's what I advise them to do, and this may or may not apply to you and your spouse, or friends of yours, or family members. Again, spread the word about all this, okay? If you find people money, they will thank you for a long time. So what I advised them to do was because Carol was collecting, Bob could actually collect a spousal benefit while he was waiting to not touch his own benefit until 70, okay? Now that option, the rules changed in 2015, but they didn't take that strategy away for everybody, okay? And if you are on this call and you're interested in Social Security, you may be of the age where you can still utilize that strategy, so I'm bringing it up, okay? So if you're married and you think this might apply to you, I encourage us, let's have a conversation and let's just see. Let's do a little mini strategy session and let's see if we can find that extra money, okay? I'm gonna pause there. I'm gonna quickly switch to Medicare really quick, just some really brief takeaways. But I'm gonna pause and just to say that for that strategy session, if you wanna schedule something, again, it's complimentary for anybody that comes to my sessions, whether live or on the webinar. Just shoot me an email with, give me 2 times that work for you. I'll do my best to accommodate. It'll be half hour. We just talk about you. We could do Social Security. We could talk about Medicare. What's the best way to go? What's the best coverage? I walk people through that too. My team helps make that as seamless as possible because there's a lot of options there. If you're nervous about the stock market, rightfully so with the election and everything, we can double check your investments and make sure the risk is appropriate. You're not paying too much more than you need to be paying. We'll see if you're properly diversified, all that important stuff that often, kind of gets backburnered. Let's take a look at that. And then if you're curious about your big picture, to see how you're doing, to see if you're gonna make it, if you are gonna run out of money, or you can retire, or how you're doing against your peers. We'll take into account Social Security, of course, and your big picture, your investments, your savings, how much you think you need a month, or I can give you that number if you're curious about that, and really just see, will you run out of money? If you're curious to see if you're adamant about retiring by a certain date, we can work backwards and I'll tell you, well, you can do it so long as you spend only X amount of dollars a month moving forward, okay? And I may say, well, you really can't retire when you're thinking you may have to work 2 more years to make this work. Or for you to retire in 2 years, you need to save this much money from now and then, between now and then, okay? So I can help answer those questions, okay? So complimentary session. I view it as a chance for you to kind of see me in action and prove to you that I know my stuff, and also gives us a chance to see for a good style match, because that's really important. And I'm also just a firm believer in karma and doing the right thing. It all comes around. As maybe you know my grandpa, oftentimes you do well by doing good. So I'm happy to give a complimentary session. Okay. So I'm keeping an eye on the clock. We're right at 12:45. I have a quick rundown on Medicare. I'm going to leave on the side that I'm happy to give you, but I do want to respect your time if anyone needs to leave. And I want to get to your questions. So I'll open it up to Q&A.
Can I just say something? Nora, I've seen Nora in action. We've gone to see her and she's amazing. I mean, what you're seeing on the screen is only a little bit of Nora. She's a really well-respected person. We're lucky. We are so lucky to have her. So I would make an appointment if I were you.
Thank you.
She really was very good with us. And I, just want to say that. That's all. But go on, Nora. Let's take questions.
Okay. Right.
Oh, I did want to say something. Your info is not in the chat for some reason. Yeah.
All right.
That's what I started to say.
Okay. I'm going to type it in, and I'm also going to share my screen momentarily here while we're doing Q&A, because my screen has my contact info. And I know sometimes it's hard to find that chat box too. So I'm just going to share my screen briefly, and then we'll have my contact information. Share. You guys see that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, and so we're doing virtual meetings. So, just like this on video where we talk, we can talk kind of best thing we could do, right? With COVID. We're also meeting people at Panera. I know a lot of people are, just like to meet eye to eye, face to face. I understand that too. So the Panera patio tends to be pretty empty. If you're comfortable with that, we can do that as well before it gets too cold out. Otherwise, we'd meet virtually. And so for these sessions, what I ask is you send me your Social Security benefits ahead of time, and any statements you want me to review, any investment statements where I see how you're invested, and that way we can really maximize our time together and make it as efficient as possible, and I can give you as much feedback as I can. Okay, so just send me an email with some dates, and I'll try to accommodate you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Under normal circumstances, we're right in East End. That's where I am now, right across Stonehill College, right by the 99. We're the first building in the industrial park.
So I have a question, Nora.
Yeah.
Am I, oh, I'm not muted. Good. Okay. This is Stacy. Hi. Thank you. This is so informative. Thank you so much. I feel like I didn't get everything, but I got enough.
Okay, good.
Because there's so much. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I can't believe there are 81 stratums of how to go. I mean, it's mind-boggling, and you have made it very clear. So thank you so much. My question is, I'm a adjunct professor, so I work in the spring and summer, but in the fall I don't teach. So how does that impact at all the Social Security situation?
Great question. Yeah, in general, you need to have 10 or 40 quarters or 10 years of working and paying into the system. So at this point, I wouldn't be concerned.
Oh, good. Okay, that's great. Okay, so longevity is really, I mean, we can't predict how long we're going to live, but that to me is that big quandary of like, wow, do you hold off till 70 or catch it in your 60s? And that's a big question. Is there any other way of thinking about it, other than, well, 8% is a good way, and also keep an increase of 8% per year is a really good way to think about it. Yeah, any pitfalls? I guess my question is, any pitfalls to this for not waiting till 70?
I mean, the glaring one is, of course, if you,
Yeah.
you know, you die in your sleep, which hopefully we'll go in our sleep and it's painless. That's a major pitfall. But I would encourage, you know, especially for whomever has a larger benefit, it's not a me decision, it's a we decision, because for your surviving spouse, it's going to affect them, because that's going to benefit. So there's more reasons to wait than not to. Another thing I'll tell you too is that you can decide at any time, right? So you can say, I'll wait off and kind of just see how things go. So let's say at 68, you get a bad bill of health, and suddenly you get scared, you can turn it on right then, and you can even go back 6 months worth, okay, and get a retroactive benefit. And if anyone's curious how to do that, I'm happy to walk you through it.
Yeah, this is so helpful, because there's so much scare information out there. Like, if you don't take it at a certain age, you're not going to get, I mean, it's so strange. This is, you know, this is so reassuring because there's a logic there.
Yes, and Medicare too. I mean, again, either people are retiring because they don't want to be, you know, they want to not deal with all this stress and figuring all this out. And adjustment enough. That's an area too. I would kind of, you know, we're tight on time, but happy to have another discussion just about that, of how to approach Medicare, what supplement, what Medigap, Part C or not, how much you can expect to pay, what makes sense. Our team walks you through and tries to make it as seamless as possible, as we do for all clients. If you have any questions on that, I can do my best to answer.
Great, thank you. Great.
And there's always a question too of, well, I'm 65 now, but I'm still on my spouse's insurance plan. Do I do that? And when they do retire, are we going to get penalized? So I know there's a lot of misinformation about that. If you have any questions, please be in touch.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. Great.
If nobody else has a question, I do. Does anybody else have a question? I go last.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Nora, that last optimization strategy that you were talking about, where one collects off the other and then you reverse it, is that related to that file and suspend strategy that the government eliminated?
It is not. I on purpose didn't include that because they eliminated it, and actually the people who were the last of the Mohicans to participate in that just sunsetted past 70, so no longer applies to anybody. Now for our clients, we made sure they took advantage of that and for the good steps, but no, I'm actually referring, they didn't take away all the strategies, they kept some, and that's one that's still available to some people.
Okay.
So
Is there a name or anything for that?
Is
there a name?
And not really. If you, there's no name for it. Like the file and suspend was a nice little name to throw around. There's no name for this strategy.
Right.
But if you think it applies to you, shoot me an email and let's check and see.
Thanks.
And what oftentimes people do is they'll say, you know, while we're doing this, let's just look at the whole big picture, give us a second opinion on the whole shebang. I'm happy to do it.
I have a question on that, when the spouse can collect, when you can collect half of your spouse. So it's different than what suspend was. In what way is it different? Do you have to be of full retirement age yourself and wait until 70? Or because I know when you suspended it, you had to be, your spouse had to be collecting and you had to have reached your full retirement age. How is it different with this?
Yes, that's right. So essentially how it's different is, I guess the best way to illustrate that was the Bob and Carol. So there was that example. If we were to apply Bob and Carol to file and suspend, this is how it would be different. Let's say they're both the same age, they're both 66, and they're both planning to collect at 70. Now you may say, well, what more do you want of these people? They're both waiting to 70. They're leaving money on the table, because what could happen is Bob could technically file and then suspend, meaning he's technically filed but isn't collecting anything. But because he did that, Carol then would collect a spousal benefit, okay, because he technically filed even though he's not collecting for those 4 years. And then she would switch her back to her own. So it's a different strategy, different maneuver. It still utilizes a spousal benefit, but in a different capacity.
Okay.
And I apologize if I just lost a lot of people on the call. Don't worry, you don't need to fully understand that. Just know the broad strokes that their rules have changed. They have not taken away all the strategies. If you have a spouse, and you are in your 60s, you may be able to still utilize the strategy that's still out there that they did not eliminate.
And Nora, sorry, this is Stacy again. Hi. Is there a place to, I mean, is the Social Security website worthy of digging into, or do you suggest a different site that might make it as clear as you do?
You know, I'm a nerd. It's the only reason why I've gotten to know all of this. I've willingly read it. There really aren't great resources. The website itself is super clunky. The Medicare isn't as bad as the Social Security website, actually. The Social Security one's pretty bad. And there aren't really great. In fact, there for a while was a book that I have on my back of my desk that was decently written. Get What's Yours, a lengthy book this long. But after 2015, it's no longer accurate because the rules changed.
That's true.
So I would just say, I'm a local free when it comes to Social Security resource. So if you have any questions, just reach out. And try to
Thank you.
Thank you. Possible.
Thank
I
you.
have a question.
I'd like to add something to what she just said. I've gone to Social Security with people and I've known some of these things myself. And if you don't know it ahead of time when you go to Social Security, they are not going to tell you. And that's exactly what they said. If you don't ask, they don't tell.
Ooh, Kathy,
So-
yes, you're right on the money. And I have too many times been on a call with a client and we're asking just basic information and we're given incorrect information. And I'm on the phone, I'm advocating for the client saying, with all due respect, this is actually incorrect. Can I please speak to someone else? And I get transferred multiple times. So not only, are they not forthcoming with information, you do have to take what they say with a grain of salt because they're not always up to speed on the rules of Social Security.
Michelle had a question.
Yeah, my husband is going to be retiring from the state pretty soon. He's over 65 and I'm not. Now we're going to be able to remain on his family plan through the state. So this is more of a hypothetical question, but what if we couldn't do that? What would happen in terms of insurance for getting insurance for a person under 65 and our son?
Yes, great question. So, and then if there's no other employer option for a health plan to go on your side, then yes, you'd go on private health care. I have a great contact for anybody who's looking to do that. And so you'd sign up for that temporarily until 65 and then make adjustments there. Sign up for Medicare and then either decide the Medicare Advantage way to go or the Medigap side. So you have two options when it comes to Medicare. A little tip For couples though, it's cheaper when couples buy separate policies and don't both go with the same provider, because you have different doctors, different prescriptions. So it's cheaper if you both get your own plan that makes sense for your own health. But any questions on that, I'm happy to walk you through it. And if you know that your employer doesn't have great insurance, it's usually known entity, and you're 65, there may be a case made that you go on Medicare and you start paying for the supplements. And in some cases, it could be cheaper. It depends on the plan that you currently have. I always just say, you know what, find out, that's something I could help with. Find out if what you're currently paying could be cheaper if you do private. Usually it's not, but there are some cases where it is cheaper and gives you better coverage. Something else I'll say too, that we didn't have time to talk on, but if anyone has questions, I often go into the Easton school system and give presentations on Social Security and their pensions. And you mentioned your husband has a pension. So anyone with a pension and how Social Security, how those coincide and how those are adjusted, I'm happy to answer questions if anybody has about that, because it's a whole nother discussion in and of itself.
Thank you.
Oh, I think you're muted. You are muted.
Who?
Stacy.
So it's Stacy again. So it changes if your spouse has a pension coming, Social Security.
It depends. Now, if your spouse has a private pension, let's say Gillette and Procter & Gamble, it's a private pension, then you get to have your cake and eat it too. You get to have your full pension and you get to have your full Social Security, no offset. Great.
It would.
Sorry.
No, it'd be state, like Michelle.
Yes. Right. If it's states, like they're a teacher, an officer, anyone who works for a municipality, then there potentially is an offset. So you're subject to two different rules, and I'm keeping an eye on the clock here. Two different rules. There's a windfall elimination provision, which is a mouthful to say that there is going to be some kind of reduction. If you are the one with the pension and the Social Security, there's an offset. And your Social Security gets reduced probably by not as much as you think. And in most cases, 7 days out of the week, I would rather be in your shoes with a pension, because they're typically much more generous than Social Security. So although no one likes to hear that the Social Security is getting reduced, it's not all doom and gloom. You're actually still in a better boat in most cases having that pension. And the reduction usually isn't as bad as people think. The maximum reduction is about $450 from what you would be receiving. If your Social Security is only $450, they'll most will reduce it by half. Okay. Now, if you are your spouse has the pension and you're trying to collect a spousal benefit, okay? Or I'm sorry, you still have the pension, but you're collecting a spousal benefit, then you are subject to the government pension offset, another huge terminology. And what that is it reduces your pension. It could reduce it potentially down to zero. Long story short, if you just send me what the benefits are, I'll do the calculation for you and just tell you what you'll be receiving.
Great, thank you.
Well, Nora, it is 1 o'clock. We have to leave this, but I think everybody here really enjoyed your presentation from what I can see in the comments. I have everybody's email, people who registered for this, and I will, make that more things available. This session was recorded, so if you want to go back and see the session, I'll let people know when it's online. Also, you have all the information you need to go to Nora and make an appointment and delve more deeply into this. We didn't get to cover Medicare too much, but maybe Nora and I can work something out, having your emails and sending you something, or doing another session, which is what I would like. But anyway, thank you all for coming. And Nora, thank you so much. One of the people who left the website said, thank you for doing this for your local community. And for Stacy, who's in New York.
Thank you, Nora.
So, you may be getting a few New York clients.
Please spread the word.
Yeah, we're all in the cloud now, right?
Yeah.
So thank you all for coming, and please get in touch with Nora. And if you need to get in touch with me, please feel free to get in touch with me so that I can help you find your way to Nora. So
Thank you
very much.
Marian.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
And thanks, I have to say thank you to the Ames Free Library, which hosted this program.
Yes, yes, of course. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Stacy. Bye. Nice to see you.
Nora, will you stay on for one more minute when people leave? So we can just chat real quick.
Thanks again, Nora. You're great.
Stacy, take care. Glad you enjoyed it.
I'll be in touch. Thanks, Marian.
Thank you. I'll talk to you. Bye, Kathy. No, she's on mute. Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
gonna stop my
Hi.
Hello. I'm just going to stop my screen share here. So
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm going to